All right, everybody, welcome to Mic'd Up with me, Michael Williamson, President and CEO, United Way Southeast Louisiana. We're bringing you our centennial edition. Yep, that's right. We are 100 years old this year. I like to say we look pretty darn good for 100, but we have a fantastic guest on today. We have Angela Williams, United Way Worldwide's CEO, a fantastic human being that's agreed to join us to certainly reflect on United Way of Southeast Louisiana's centennial and the role that we've played in the community, but also, we'll close it out with a little bit about her vision for our future. So welcome, Angela.
Hey, Michael, thanks so much for allowing me to join you and to be mic'd up. This is
Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah, we're gonna have some fun, and we're gonna share some great information about the work that we're doing, not just here in Southeast Louisiana, but certainly around the globe. And I have to tell everybody, if folks were following us on LinkedIn, like a couple of years ago or so, you would have seen Angela boots on the ground in New Orleans right after Hurricane Ida. So she's no stranger to New Orleans, and so we're glad to have you on the show to be able to talk about the work that we're doing. So let's start. I got a few questions for you, if you don't mind. Let's start. Angela, as the CEO of United Way Worldwide, could you share your insights on the broader significance of United Way of Southeast Louisiana celebrating our centennial and the impact it's had or we've had as a leading nonprofit and a community convener?
Well, Michael, as you know, I've been in this role for just over 2 years. And as you recall, the very first visit I made into the United Way network in the field, so to speak, was to you all and visiting you all in New Orleans and getting an opportunity to understand how local United Ways operate in community. And what I appreciated about that time that I spent with you was that I got to see how you all were connected to various sectors within the community, whether it was the government sector or whether it was the corporate sector or other nonprofit partners. I also appreciated meeting your staff to understand the programming on the ground that you all are doing. For example, the Prosperity Center, I believe that's what you call it. But you all really demonstrated for me the role of United Way in a community as a partner, a trusted partner, as an advocate, and as that go-to organization that when something happens in a community, you and your staff will roll up your sleeves and get to it. Now, one thing I do want to mention, just as an example, you mentioned that I came shortly after Hurricane Ida. And so the devastating effects of that were still being felt by the communities up and down. Was it I-10? Is that the corridor?
Yeah,
So
everything south of I-10, absolutely.
yep, yep. And you and your colleagues drove me to one of the communities where the roads had just opened up, where we actually literally saw boats in people's yards, mud everywhere. And we stopped at this building that was adjacent and owned by a church next door, where they had set up for food and for other items for people to come. And we literally were unloading a truck and putting it into this facility to assist the local people. And so to me, that was a demonstration of how local United Ways are right there. It doesn't matter what's happening in the community. We are the ones that are neighbors and friends and connected to community. We're not the ones that just sort of pile in, show up, volunteer, and then leave. What you and your colleagues do is stay there and have those strong bonds and relationships. And then while we were there, you facilitated a meeting with me and the mayor. And he expressed his appreciation of how United Way was helping his community. So I'll just say that United Way is such an integral part of communities. You all are 100 years old. The organization itself is 135 years old. We've been here a long time, and there's still much more for us to do.
Well, thanks for sharing, Angela, because that brought back that memory. We were in the town of Jean Lafitte
Mhm.
And they were so glad to see United Way and so many other community-based organizations show up. And we're proud to help convene and facilitate and pull partners together and be the go-to for, our policymakers, the mayor and other leaders in the community. And so, and they're still recovering, making progress, but they call it long-term recovery for a reason because it's
Yeah.
very, very long. So, we're celebrating our centennial. And could you just say a little bit about, like we've been a cornerstone in this community for 100 years now, starting out as the community chest. How does that longevity and sustained presence, as a United Way here contribute to our effectiveness as a community-based organization?
What's so important for organizations like yours, ours as a network, is that one, we have the brand recognition. People know United Way. They have great respect for it. United Way have had wonderful interactions that go way back when with our organization, and they've had the opportunity to see how we engage in impact. In fact, your United Way was one of the first ones to really dig into place-based impact work in community. And that has really paid off. And as you said, the interaction with government, with corporate, with other philanthropists coming together, they see how you all have invested in community. The one thing I will also note is that the key to success for an organization to be around for a century has to be the connections. What you all do is you listen to the community. You take the time to say, we're here not as saviors, but as partners. And it's that partnership that is essential and key for any organization to have longevity. And clearly, 100 years in, you all have that.
Yeah, we've talked about it. I found myself like certainly over the past several weeks as we're getting into the celebration of our centennial, which is going to be all year. We're going to take every moment and opportunity to celebrate. But the fact that any brand can make it 100 years and continue to evolve is nothing short of impressive. There are a long list of brands that are no longer here. They're not relevant, and so we've certainly in Southeast Louisiana, because of the support we have, worked hard to maintain our relevance. My next question for you, Angela, is the concept of United Way as a community convener going back to the origination. You think 135 years ago, for the beginning of our network. Can you elaborate just a little bit more on what it means to serve in that role as a convener and how it actually enhances collaboration among a diverse group of stakeholders? I don't think that can be emphasized enough.
Yes. In fact, I want to go back to again when I visited with you for the first time. You threw me in the deep end head first. And this is how you did that. You had set up a panel discussion with one of the local congressmen to talk about the, as we call it, the asset limited income constrained employed population and how you activate data about the population that you all serve and share that data with key stakeholders, whether it's congressional, federal leaders, whether it's the local leaders, companies, again, philanthropy, other nonprofit partners. And so by using data, understanding the needs, not only the needs of the community, but I would say where the community is, you're then able to help lift up the issues, work towards solutions collaboratively, because you have so many touch points and so many relationships that you can convene the multiple stakeholders to say, how do we work together to solve the issues of our neighbors? And so that's what I saw in action. And I know that's what you continue to do even today.
Your recall has been fantastic, Angela. Sitting with Congressman Troy Carter, like who many policymakers, uh, reviews and looks at the Alice report. His staffers use that as a way to understand community, and the fact that our United Way has been very intentional about connecting with community and visiting community and making sure that as we execute against our blueprint for prosperity, which is all centered on our vision of equitable communities where everybody's healthy, educated, and economically stable, to have the support of our policymakers as well and be able to engage and use data to inform our discussions has really elevated our ability to be a true collaborative partner and bring value to the conversations. We want to bring value, to discussions and be seen as a thought leader. And those are things that we've worked hard at. You've kind of covered. We've talked about the collaborative approach. Because I had another question for you, but I think we really.
Well, before you ask me the next question,
Sure.
I flipped the script a little bit and ask you a question.
All right.
And that is because I think it's so important to the conversation. You just mentioned the prosperity centers, and I just glossed over them, but that is an example of how United Way Southeast Louisiana is active in community. Can you just share like a couple of bullets, like the highlights of the Prosperity Center and how it has really contributed to the lives of individuals and families and really lifted up the community?
No, hey, I love flipping the script and let's go with it. I think I should first start with the fact that 12 years ago, Angela, I was still the chief operating officer, with a plan a year later to become CEO, but we launched an effort to build our transformation business plan with internal and external stakeholders. That led to the creation of our blueprint for prosperity just a few short years later. And that gave us direction. It helped refine our purpose as an organization. We knew exactly what we stood for. And as we took on the Alice report, this study of financial hardship, that centered us even more. And we had been building capacity around financial capability, asset building programming. So we had been doing some things. My staff came to me at one point and said, listen, like we have almost all the elements of what we would call a prosperity center, where we can help build financial capability among families and do it holistically, meeting people where they're at. And so that evolved into us saying, okay, we're going to do this. We carved out a little bit of space in our former location at 2515 Canal Street, started doing programming, saw success. We later named it after the late J. Wayne Leonard, the former CEO of Entergy Corporation. But the net result was we filled a void, a gap, where there wasn't enough coordinated programming to build financial capability. And we did that. And so now we have a beautiful space on Canal Street. We have a place in Covington, Louisiana for our North Shore people, and all the way up in Bogalusa in Washington Parish, extremely poor community, but is in our footprint that we made a commitment to serve in partnership with the leadership in that community. And so it has become, I call it the tip of the spear. And now virtually every conversation we have, we somehow go back to, and we have our prosperity centers. We have a way to connect with individuals where they are. And so we have stakeholders, our universities, our city municipal governments that are reaching out and saying, listen, we'd like to partner with you. We have resources and we'd like to invest in you. We understand the power of what you can do with your prosperity center. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk about that. And I always have to give a shout out. You started at the very, very beginning about the United Way staff. Like our staff are so amazing. And I could go and list every person and tell you something special about them. But when I think about our financial capability building work, Chiquita Lattimore, who's our senior vice president for financial capability, is a powerhouse. And she is called, she gets calls around the country asking her about the Prosperity Center. So I definitely have to give my Chiquita a shout out. So, hey, so as we close out here, the idea of like the future. So we're celebrating 100 years. We see it as an opportunity to celebrate, but it's also a launching path uh, for our future. And we're thinking about that. We're thinking about, well, what does the next 100 years look like? If we have a bold and aspirational vision, like what can we achieve as an organization long after, many of us depart this planet? So, looking forward, you've been out there, you've been traveling the country and the world,
Mhm.
connecting with partners, both local United Ways and industry leaders and policymakers and thought leaders. But share a little bit about your vision for United Way headed into the future.
Thanks. That's a great question. It's a huge question. So I start with the fact that we've been around as an organization for 1 century. What is clear is that communities, people, individuals, families have need of United Way and will continue. We can even look at this year of 2024 and say there is still so much need in the areas of work that United Way engages in, which is pretty broad, whether it's health, education, economic mobility, or even disaster response and climate. So what I think about is that we've done it in partnership in the past, and to set ourselves up for success in our 2nd century of service, we need to continue to strengthen the partnerships, number one. Secondly, people need to understand that in order to do the work that we do in service to our communities, it takes funds. We need to work on, when we think about the sustainability piece, how do we invest in the infrastructure of this 1,100 local United Ways operating in 37 countries? What do we need to do to ensure that we are flexible and agile so that as the world is changing quickly, as technology is changing on a daily basis, that we are able to access, use the latest and greatest in order to be more effective and impactful in our communities? And then the last thing, when I think about the relevancy, how are we not just looking at our current context within this year, this day, but how are we thinking 10 years, 20 years, 30 years out to be future-focused leaders, to anticipate how the world is changing, what are the needs of individuals and communities, and how do we continue to shape our organization, transform our organization to be there for a 2nd century of service. There's a lot of work that has to be done. There are a lot of funds that are needed to do that work. And that's what I want people to understand, that no one stakeholder, no one sector can improve communities alone. Government can't do it alone. Companies can't do it alone. The nonprofit sector can't do it alone, and on and on. So what do we have to do? We have to partner, collaborate, work together in partnership with community to make the world a better place. And that's what I'm committed to doing. I know that's what you're committed to doing. And I know that's what all of our leaders in the United Way network are committed to doing.
Well, Angela, I can't think of a better way to end the show. We often talk about here in Southeast Louisiana that our United Way has knowledge, know-how, and infrastructure. Like we have this basic inherent, it's in our DNA as an organization. Our call is to bring partners to the table to leverage it, and let's maximize the value that we can create in the community, which is all driven by our impacts. And we've seen fantastic, results so far, but we have to do it at scale. And so I appreciate you first, sharing your vision, and it so much aligns with ours here, and also highlighting the fact that we have 1,100 United Ways in 37 countries around the world, and you get to interact with a lot of these individuals. I certainly get to interact with a lot of these. We have so many bright and talented people in the network that is such a powerful mechanism that's available to the world. And so thanks for sharing, folks. Angela Williams CEO United Way Worldwide, but a dear friend to United Way of Southeast Louisiana. Angela, thanks for being on the show.
And Michael, thank you and your colleagues for all that you do.
Absolutely. So y'all, this is a wrap for Mic'd Up with me, Michael Williamson, and a special guest, Angela Williams. For now, I just need you to remember one thing. You only have one life to live. To live better, you must live united.